This is the Pioneer F90 tuner. It looks pretty sort of like a mundane tuner you'd expect to see in the 80s in one of the rack systems that were sort of readily available from Pioneer. Pretty dull looking tuner, but this is a bit of a special tuner. It was actually very expensive in its time. I think in the 1981-82 when it first came out it was close on £230–240. And it got rave reviews from a lot of the specialists in the Hi-Fi Choice magazines and things like that, all of the magazines in the 80s. And it was quite a clever sort of system. I don't totally understand how it works, but it uses like a sort of like a almost like a double conversion IF on it. It's not double conversion. It's sort of, but it shifts the IF away from 10.7 and doubles it to 21.2 or whatever 10.7 times 2 is. And the tuner, even though it looks pretty sort of dull and very 1980s style to it, they're an excellent performer. They really are good. They got very sensitive. They got a lovely sound. They really have. They're just let down a bit by their looks. And I know purists among you say, well, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's what it sounds like. I've actually got two of these tuners, and these are also prone from a number of faults. One of the faults seems to be I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but they can blow the front end transistor up quite easily, and I'm not sure if that's totally believable or not. But the main problem is their memory switches. Their switches here are just membrane switches, and what happens is behind the membrane switch there's a little bit of foam that pads the button out. And what happens with time and the atmosphere getting into it, that a little bit of foam disintegrates, and you end up you can't select the switches anymore. So it's fairly straightforward repair. You just need to take the front panel off and wipe out all the gunge that's disintegrated behind the switches, pad them out, and you're away again, and the tuner should be absolutely fine. Now, AM/FM tuner, I'm not going to go through too much detail. Selectable IF bandwidth for difficult reception areas and for reducing multipath and things like that. Inbuilt tone calibrator, simple 8 selection memory. No signal strength, just a tuned light, stereo, and the memory light to let you know you've selected one of the memories. So, and the AM is appalling actually. The AM performance is really awful. One of the worst AM tuners I've ever listened to. Muddy, insensitive. I think it was there just to sort of fill a space, to be honest with you. But the problem with this tuner is, this tuner has got a problem where you can hear it's working fine now, and if I scan through a frequency and find another frequency, what it will do, it will never ever stop. It will never ever find a signal, and it doesn't matter how strong the signal is, it will never find it. Basically what it looks to me like is when it's gone into a tuning mode, it's basically shutting down the front end, or it's muting the aerial input, or stopping the oscillator or something, and it's not finding a signal. Now it will just go around and around and around in signals. It doesn't matter if I stick 1 volt into the front end of the set, it won't stop at it. The only way you can get it to stop at signals is to go into manual search and just scroll through until you get to the frequency you want. So in manual search you can get it, and it will find it absolutely fine. Let's try radio 1. This is radio 1, and take the muting off. It's absolutely fine. But you go back past there and back again, nothing. So what I want to try and do is work out what's wrong with the thing. Now, I've had a quick look. Now the obvious, I know a lot of people are saying, well, the mute level's too high, and it's not that. I've tried, the mute level is adjustable on this tune, and you can actually turn the mute, I'll demonstrate it actually, you can actually turn the mute level right the way down with the mute pot. So as you hear, it's unmuted, go into mute mode, turn the muting pots down, so the gate's wide open sort of thing, and it still won't search and won't find the tuning, the frequency. So it's definitely something to do with the way when it goes into tuning mode, it's like it's stopping the front end, or it's shorting out the front end, or doing something so it's not receiving signals. So it's looking for something, but there's obviously no signal coming in. So what I'm going to try and do is I've got a schematic for it, and I actually got a genuine service manual for it, and funny enough the genuine service manual actually came with this tuner. So I've got a funny feeling that either someone's had a go at fixing it, or it's been owned by maybe a small outfit who tried to repair the tuner, couldn't get their heads around it, and thought, we'll tell them it's written off. So the customer's gone and bought a new tuner and left this, obviously the tuner this tuner behind, and so they probably just sold it on eBay. Now these go for quite a lot of money still on eBay. You're looking at £80–90 for one of these tuners, whereas tuners nowadays, even a really quite decent Japanese tuner, you can pay only 30–35 quid for. Mainly because it's had a reputation of being such a good performer. Don't get me wrong, there are other excellent tuners out there, but this was one of the sort of mold breaking Japanese tuners, really. I think it sort of people were quite surprised at how well it actually performed. So I'd like to get it going, and what I'm going to try and do now is work my way through the circuit diagram. There is a control chip inside. Let me just show you inside. That I am looking at now. The circuit diagram for these and the layout's pretty good. You've also got quite detailed information on what things you do when you press them and things like that, and muting levels. Now this chip here is the one I'm interested in. This is basically like the control chip that does all the sort of switching and stuff. It's pretty it's pretty standard Japanese build quality. There's your FM front end, RF amplifiers, that's your local oscillator. This is all part of the VCO tracking and things. This is all multiplex down here, and the power supply, and that's sort of like driver for the display, etc. So it's pretty straightforward sort of build quality. One thing I will say is these linear regulators on here run really hot. This one actually, I noticed, was set to 220 volts, and they're not all like this, but this I've altered the tapping to 240, basically to, if nothing else, just reduce the dissipation on the linear regulators, because they haven't got so much voltage to come in. So what I need to do is go through this chip. I don't know if anyone's had any experience with any of these sort of faults like this, but that chip, I'm going to find some details in this Toshiba IC here, see if they're available, because they have got, as I say, switching information for most of the transistors and most of the diodes and things like that. So the manual's pretty good, actually. One of the nicer manuals to use. I'll show you around the back here. This is part of the audio output, probably part of the de-emphasis, and 19 kilohertz traps for the pilot tone and things like that. So that's going to be the next project, to try and just get this little F90 going, because I think it's worth it. I mean, a lot of people say, well, what are you bothering with a tuner like that? They're not going to be used in the next 20 years. No, maybe not, but I hate having stuff in the workshop that's almost working but not quite. I think if there was a £15, £20 tuner, I would have taken it out the skip by now and or scavenged it for parts, but it's too good for that. I think it has got a bit of an iconic value to it, so we'll try and get it going. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully more to come on this tuner.